Desperate and without a penny in his pocket, Benjamin Adams bets his last savings on a castle forgotten by time, an imposing structure full of dark legends. The locals warn him, no one stays there for an entire night. But for a man with nothing left to lose, facing his own fears seems to be a small price to pay. Amid the solitude of the stone walls, he will discover something he was not looking for, and that will forever change the way he sees the world, people, and himself. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The wind was howling between the towers of the abandoned castle as Benjamin Adams stepped down from the carriage that had brought him from the train station. The small town seemed frozen in time, with its stone houses and cobblestone streets. The year was 1932, and while the world struggled against the Great Depression, Benjamin had bet everything he had on an unusual dream, an abandoned castle on the outskirts of a town that didn't even appear on the main maps. With his worn-out coat and battered leather suitcase, Benjamin didn't look like he owned anything, let alone a castle. His shoes, mended more times than he could count, revealed his financial situation. But nobody needed to know that this had been his last desperate move. The savings of a lifetime, the few dollars he had managed to save working as an accountant in the capital, and even the modest inheritance left by his late mother, all were now invested in that place. "Old Jack's Tavern is just ahead, sir," said the coachman, pointing to a dark wooden building at the end of the main street. "Best place to grab a bite before heading to the castle." Benjamin thanked and headed towards the tavern. The smell of stew and fresh bread made his stomach growl. He hadn't had a decent meal in days, saving every penny for his investment. As he entered the establishment, he felt all eyes turn toward him. "A stranger," murmured a grey-bearded man at the counter. Benjamin sat at a table in the corner and ordered the dish of the day. While he waited, his eyes fell on a yellowed photograph on the wall. The castle in its days of glory, about 50 years before, imposing and sumptuous. "Admiring Blackwood Castle?" asked an elderly gentleman, approaching with a mug of beer in hand. "Beautiful place, isn't it? Or at least it used to be." "In fact, I just bought it," replied Benjamin, with a mix of pride and apprehension. The silence that followed was so thick it could be cut with a knife. 3 men playing cards at a nearby table turned simultaneously. "Bought the castle?" repeated the one in the brown hat. "My good man, you must be joking." "Or crazy," added the youngest of the 3, with a thin moustache that quivered when he spoke. "Nobody buys that place. It's abandoned for a reason." "And what would that be?" asked Benjamin, trying to keep calm while his stomach was in knots. The elderly man sat down in front of him. "The old Lord Blackwood died there in 1887. They say he was murdered by his own wife, who then hanged herself in the North Tower. Since then, no one has been able to spend an entire night in that place." Benjamin swallowed hard. "That's just a legend, I'm sure." The man in the brown hat approached. "Legend? My cousin Edmund tried to spend a night there in 1910. He woke up with a chandelier floating above his head. He ran out and never returned." "And the mailman Miller," added another man, "swore he saw a woman in white at the 3rd-floor window. When he went to check, there was no one in the castle." The stories continued while Benjamin ate his stew. They spoke of mysterious lights, footsteps in the middle of the night, furniture that moved on its own, and even a piano that played by itself in the library. Benjamin forced a smile, trying to appear unconcerned, but each new story made his certainty waver a little more. "You are exaggerating to scare the outsider," said a middle-aged lady bringing a slice of apple pie. "Don't mind them, dear. They're just old superstitions." But even she admitted that she would never spend a night in Blackwood Castle. The sun was already setting when Benjamin reached the rusty gates of the castle. His rented horse seemed nervous, refusing to advance beyond a certain point. Benjamin dismounted and tied it to a nearby tree, promising to return soon to take it to the crumbling stable. The path to the main entrance was flanked by stone statues covered in moss. Some had lost their heads or arms, giving them a spectral appearance in the twilight. Benjamin took a deep breath and moved forward, carrying his suitcase and a newly lit lantern. The castle was larger than it appeared in the photographs. Its spiky towers rose against the orange sky, and the numerous windows seemed like eyes watching every step of the new owner. The fountain in the centre of the courtyard, once majestic, was now dry, with a statue of Neptune covered in vines at the centre. Benjamin inserted the huge key into the lock of the main door. The creak that followed echoed through the empty courtyard, sending a shiver down his spine. Inside, the main hall was imposing even in its state of abandonment. A large chandelier covered in cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and a double marble staircase led to the upper floors. "Well, here we are," he said aloud, more to dispel the oppressive silence than anything else. He explored the ground floor by the light of the lamp. He found a dining room with a table long enough for 20 people, a library with empty shelves, and a large kitchen with old utensils and a big fireplace. In one of the pantries, to his surprise, he discovered some cans of food and bottles of wine that seemed to have been left there not too long ago. "Strange," he murmured, examining the labels. "It seems someone was here recently." When he went upstairs to choose one of the rooms, the wind outside picked up, making the windows shake. Benjamin chose what seemed to have been the master bedroom, with a large canopy bed. The sheets were dusty but still usable. He unfolded the blanket he had brought in his suitcase and prepared for the night. It was when he heard the first sound, a creaking in the hallway, as if someone was slowly walking on the wooden floor. Benjamin froze, the lamp trembling in his hand. He remembered the stories in the tavern and tried to convince himself that it was just the wind or the old wood settling. "Hello?" he called out, his voice weaker than he would have liked. "Is there someone there?" Only silence answered, but just when he was about to relax, another sound echoed. This time, it was clearly the sound of a door closing somewhere in the castle. Benjamin spent a restless night waking up at every little noise. Twice he had the impression of seeing a figure quickly pass by the gap in the door. On one of these occasions he swore he saw the shadow of a woman cast on the wall, but when he got up to check, there was no one there. The morning arrived with the singing of birds and a new determination. Benjamin got up early, washed his face with water from a well in the inner courtyard, and decided to thoroughly explore his new property in the daylight. The castle was even more impressive than he had imagined. Besides the towers and the main building, there were abandoned gardens, an empty pool covered with dry leaves, and even a tennis court overgrown with weeds. In its glory days, it must have been a magnificent place to live. "I will turn this place into an inn," he decided, mentally noting all the necessary renovations. "People will come from far away to see the renovated Blackwood Castle." While walking along the outer perimeter, trying to assess the state of the stone walls, something caught his attention. Looking up, he clearly saw a figure in one of the third-floor windows, a female silhouette that quickly disappeared. Benjamin's heart raced. Could it be possible that the stories were true? Was the ghost of Lady Blackwood still wandering the castle? "Ghosts don't exist," he muttered to himself. Yet he still quickened his pace towards the entrance. Determined to uncover the truth, Benjamin climbed the stairs to the third floor, an area he had not yet explored. The corridors were narrow, with doors on both sides. Some were locked, others opened to empty, dust-covered rooms. At the end of the east corridor, he found a door ajar. He pushed it open slowly, revealing a room that, unlike the others, seemed inhabited. An improvised bed in a corner, some women's clothes folded over a chair, and remnants of food on a small table. A sudden noise behind him made him turn around quickly. From inside, a large oak wardrobe emerged a young woman. She held a fireplace poker like a weapon, her brown eyes wide with fear and determination. "Who are you? Why are you here in my castle?" she asked, raising the poker in an attack position. Benjamin stepped back, surprised. The ghost was, in fact, a young woman of flesh and blood, with brown hair tied in a dishevelled braid and wearing simple but clean clothes. "Your castle? I bought this castle, it is mine," replied Benjamin, with an indignation in his voice that he couldn't contain. The young woman slowly lowered the poker, her expression shifting from hostility to confusion, and then to something close to despair. "Well, it's just that I've been living here for a long time and," she said, her voice faltering. Benjamin observed her more closely. She didn't seem like an ordinary intruder. Her clothes, though simple, were well cared for, and there was a dignity in her posture that didn't match that of a vagrant. "What is your name?" he asked, softening his tone. "Ella. Ella Hayes," she replied, still holding the poker, but now more as a support than a weapon. "Well, Ella, I am Benjamin Adams, the new owner of this castle, and I would like to know why you are living hidden here." She hesitated, clearly considering whether she should trust him or not. "I have nowhere to go," she finally admitted. "My father was a caretaker at Wheeler Farm. When he died last year, the owners kicked me out of the house without even waiting for the funeral to finish. I had no money, no relatives. This castle was abandoned, so—" Benjamin felt a wave of compassion. He himself knew well the financial despair and uncertainty about the future. "How long have you been here?" "Almost 8 months," Ella replied. "No one comes here except for a few teenagers occasionally, but they never come up to this floor. I have a job as a cleaner at the city hospital. Everyone thinks I live in the neighbouring town." Benjamin looked around. The castle was enormous, with dozens of empty rooms. He would need months, maybe years, to completely renovate it. And, honestly, the idea of being alone in that huge place wasn't very appealing. "Look, the castle is too big for just one person," he finally said. "You can stay in this wing for now, until you find another place. Or—" he hesitated briefly, "you could help me with the renovation. Having lived here for so long, you must know every detail of this castle." Ella's face lit up with hope. "I know this castle like the back of my hand," she said. "I know where all the entrances are, the secret passages, the problems with the roof." "Secret passages?" Benjamin asked, intrigued. Ella smiled for the first time, a smile that completely transformed her tense face. "Oh, this castle has many secrets, Mr. Adams. I can show you all of them." In the weeks that followed, Benjamin and Ella established a routine. She continued working at the hospital during the day, while he made small repairs and planned the renovation. At night, they shared a simple meal, and Ella showed Benjamin some new corner of the castle. The fountain in the central courtyard was one of their first achievements. Together they cleared the debris, repaired the pipes, and restored the statue of Neptune. The day the water flowed again, crystal clear under the spring sun, was a moment of pure joy for both of them. "I never thought I would see this fountain working again," Ella said, her eyes reflecting the sparkling water. Benjamin noticed that he was watching Ella's face more than the fountain. In the last few months she had transformed. She was no longer the frightened girl he had found in the wardrobe. Now she walked confidently through the castle corridors, giving orders to the few local workers Benjamin had managed to hire to help with the larger tasks. The pool was the next project. Hidden behind a garden of wild roses, the old marble pool had an elegant design reminiscent of Roman baths. It took weeks to clean, repair cracks, and restore the filtration system. "My father used to tell stories about the parties the Blackwoods threw here," Ella commented as they painted the decorative tiles. "They say that Lady Blackwood loved to swim at midnight, with the garden lit by lanterns." "Maybe we can do the same someday," Benjamin suggested, imagining the courtyard illuminated and Ella swimming under the moonlight. As they worked side by side, Benjamin learned more about Ella. Her mother had died when she was only 8 years old, leaving her in the care of her father, a kind but reserved man. She grew up reading books she borrowed from the local library and dreaming of one day travelling far from the small town. "I wanted to see the sea," she confessed one night while they were organising the newly restored library. "We'll put maps on the walls," Benjamin decided. "That way you can plan your future travels." Ella laughed. "With my cleaning lady's salary, maybe in another life." You never know what the future holds, Benjamin said, briefly holding her hand before realizing what he was doing and pulling away, embarrassed. Summer arrived, bringing new challenges and discoveries. Benjamin, while restoring the castle, took on small jobs in the town. The tennis court was cleaned and restored, and the gardens began to take shape again under his and Ella's care. One afternoon, while they were cleaning a storeroom, they found a chest full of old paintings. Sitting on the dusty floor, they spent hours examining images of the former owners and lavish parties. "Look, it's Lady Blackwood," Ella said, showing the painting of an elegant woman in a period dress. "She doesn't seem like the kind of person who would kill her husband and then hang herself." Benjamin agreed. "I think the townspeople exaggerated those stories to scare me." "Or maybe," Ella suggested with a mischievous smile, "they were trying to keep you away because they knew there was hidden treasure here." "A treasure, is it?" Benjamin laughed. "And where would it be?" "Maybe behind this false wall," Ella replied, standing up and tapping on a wooden panel that produced a hollow sound. To Benjamin's surprise, the panel opened, revealing a small hidden chamber. Inside there was no treasure but rather a collection of yellowed letters and a diary. The letters were correspondences between Lord and Lady Blackwood. Far from being enemies, as the legend suggested, they were deeply in love. The diary, written by Lady Blackwood herself, revealed that her husband had died of pneumonia after falling into the frozen lake during the winter. Devastated, she had moved to her sister's house in France, where she died years later of natural causes. "So, there are no ghosts," concluded Benjamin. "Just me, unintentionally scaring the local residents," added Ella with a laugh that echoed through the attic. Autumn painted the castle gardens with golden and red hues. The renovation was progressing well, and Benjamin began to plan the inn's opening for the following spring. More than half of the rooms were already completely restored, with antique furniture carefully recovered and new pieces that matched the castle's style. One night, while dining in the renovated kitchen, Benjamin realized that something had changed between them. It was no longer just a working partnership or a casual friendship. It was something deeper, more meaningful. Ella had prepared a stew with vegetables from the newly planted garden. The table was set with special care, with an embroidered tablecloth they had found in one of the cupboards, and candles casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. "I was thinking," Benjamin began, nervous like he hadn't felt since his teenage years, "about the future of the inn." "It will be a success," assured Ella. "It's not about that," he said, gathering courage. "It's about us."
Ella slowly lowered the spoon, her eyes meeting his. "In the last few months you've transformed this place," Benjamin continued. "Not just the castle, but my life. When I got here, I was desperate, betting everything I had on a last gamble. Now for the first time in years I feel like I belong somewhere." "Benjamin," she began, but he raised his hand. "Please let me finish before I lose my nerve." He took a deep breath. "What I mean is that the inn needs a manager, someone who knows every corner of this place, who knows how to welcome guests, who understands how to make this castle a home for visitors." "Are you offering me a job?" Ella asked, a note of disappointment in her voice. Benjamin laughed nervously. "No, I'm asking you to be my partner, in everything." Ella's eyes widened. "Benjamin, I don't have money to invest." "You have already invested," he interrupted. "Your knowledge, your work, your dedication. It's worth more than any amount of money." She remained silent for a moment, processing his words. "There is something else," he continued, standing up and kneeling beside her. "I don't just want a business partner. I want a companion in life." Tears began to form in Ella's eyes. "Benjamin, I know it may seem hasty," he said quickly. "We can wait if you prefer. Get to know each other better. But I know what I feel, and I think you feel the same way." Ella placed her hand on his face, a gesture so tender that it made Benjamin's heart leap. "For months I've been trying not to fall in love with you," she admitted. I thought that as soon as the castle was ready you would ask me to leave, that I would go back to having no home.
You will never be without a home again, Benjamin promised.
This castle is yours as much as it is mine now.
She leaned in and kissed him softly, a kiss that sealed a promise greater than any partnership contract. In the following spring, Blackwood Castle opened its doors as the most elegant inn in the region. The rooms, each decorated with a different theme, quickly became popular among honeymooning couples and families seeking a peaceful retreat. Benjamin and Ella were married in an intimate ceremony in the rose garden, now in full bloom. The fountain they had restored together served as the backdrop for their vows, and the sparkling water seemed to bless the union. The townspeople, who previously avoided the castle due to ghost legends, now frequented it regularly. Old Jack's Tavern began serving Lady Blackwood stew, a special recipe by Ella that became famous in the region. At night, when the last guest retired, Benjamin and Ella would sit in the restored library, discussing plans for the next day, or simply enjoying the comfortable silence that only exists between two people who know each other deeply. You know what's funny? Ella remarked one of those nights, as she watched the flames in the fireplace. When my father died and I was thrown out of the farm, I thought my life was over. And now, look at us. Benjamin squeezed her hand. The castle, which was once a symbol of ghosts and dark legends, had become a beacon of hope and renewal. And the love between Benjamin and Ella, forged within the ancient walls during the restoration, proved to be as solid and enduring as the very stones of Blackwood Castle. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.